let's move on now to talk about apprentices. It is expected that there'll be an alarming drop in the number of apprenticeships being offered by British industry this summer. The Manpower Services Commission believes that companies will take on only 60,000 apprentices after the summer holidays, and that's a drop of 25% or a quarter on last year. On top of this, nearly half of Britain's 24 industrial training boards set up by the government in the early 60s to train apprentices face the axe under legislation framed by the Employment Training Bill, which is currently going through Parliament. Anne Clements now reports on the disappearing apprentice.
At Hayling Manor Comprehensive in Croydon, these fifth formers will be leaving their metalwork class behind in June. Some of them want to put their practical work to further use, and they'll be competing with thousands of other school leavers for apprenticeships.
I'd like to go into mechanical engineering in a company or possibly do an apprenticeship. I've wrote 7 letters off to various firms and they've sent me back replies, and it's just a case of having an interview, and if I'm suitable, I'll go into an apprenticeship with the firm.
Hope to go into engineering, get an apprenticeship in engineering. But no one will have you at the moment, you know. Keep applying, but they just turn you down.
Have you noticed any decline in apprentice training over the last few years?
Oh yes. Local firms that would originally take on 20 people are now offering apprentices for about 5, maybe.
For those would-be apprentices who do get turned down by employers, there are government-backed training centres. This one at Croydon is run by the EITB, Engineering Industry Training Board. Adrian Marshall is pinning his hopes on an EITB apprenticeship.
I've been to an interview for Tech Train to take on apprentices for EITB and hope to get into that. But there was a lot of the interview sort of thing. It was tests. I had to take some tests. They were hard.
The tests are hard because there are only a few places for school leavers like Adrian who'd be coming in on a government grant. That's because most of the apprentices at this centre are paid for by the companies they work for and spend the first year of their apprenticeship here. But because of the recession, fewer companies are taking advantage of the training centre.
The capacity of this centre is about 180, 190 trainees, and currently we're just above 150. But that is a situation which you'll find in most first-year training centres, unfortunately.
Since firms are cutting down on training, the EITB hope to take in more apprentices on government grants. Last year they took on 11 here who'd failed to get company apprenticeships. Andrew Bryce is one of them. He wants to be a toolmaker and applied for 15 apprenticeships.
At 15 I did about 14 interviews and I only went through for about 10 tests and passed some of the tests, and then I got letters back saying that they didn't want me and trying another centre or trying another company and wishing me luck. That's about it.
When Andrew leaves the EITB centre in June, he'll be better placed than this year's school leavers to find a job, but he'll be competing with many apprentices who've been made redundant by their companies this year.
Since September last year, some 1,800 apprentices nationwide have been made redundant. But what I can say, as a more hopeful note, we have managed to help 1,600 of those 1,800 either find alternative employment or obtain alternative training.
But what about this September? Will the engineering companies take on even fewer apprentices?
Our best estimates at the moment are that they will recruit something like 14,000 young people, which we believe is 6,000 short of what they should be doing.
So what can you do to alleviate the situation?
Well, we are hoping that we shall have funds to recruit an additional 6,000, but the problem still remains. We have to continue their apprenticeship, which is normally a further 3 years, hopefully with an employer. It does depend on whether there is an upturn in the economy.
It also depends on whether there will still be an EITB. The Employment and Training Bill will allow Employment Secretary James Pryor to abolish any industrial training board of his choosing. So, will the EITB be abolished?
There is always that possibility. It is one of the options.
Well, I think it would be very, very bad. It's cutting the training at the time when it's required, so that in 2 or 3 years' time there's going to be a gap in training when they're looking for 20 plus people to take on more important work. There won't be the trained staff to do so.
So where would that leave Adrian?
I'll be stuck for somewhere to go, sort of thing, you know. Wouldn't have a job. Go on the dole.
So companies are cutting back on apprentices, and Employment Minister James Pryor is poised to axe some of the 24 industrial training boards. He's also poised to transfer all the operating costs of those training boards that survive over to industry. Now, industry is in no position to take on extra costs at the moment, and it's a vicious circle. The losers will be young people like Adrian, who may get no training, and future employers who won't be able to find enough trained staff when they need them.